Am I going against the grain and saying that I liked Eternals? Yes.
When you love something, you protect it.
I've just come back from the cinema from watching Eternals, Marvel Studios' latest movie, and this is my review of that movie. My review will be mostly spoiler free, but I will have a spoiler section towards the end of this video because I really want to talk about that ending, and I really want to talk about not one but two post-credit scenes. I will have a spoiler warning before I talk about any spoilers, so you don't have to worry about getting any before that point. And so my general thoughts on this movie: yes, I like this movie. I'm aware that it wasn't or isn't receiving the best of reviews, but honestly I really enjoyed this movie, and my review will be mostly positive with only a few bad comments. Eternals is about the Eternals, a race of immortal beings with superhuman powers who have been secretly living on Earth for thousands of years until they have to reunite and fight off evil deviants. And I strongly believe that this movie is really grounded in its storytelling, and to the best of my knowledge or the best of my memory, we haven't quite had a Marvel movie like this. And if I were to pick a Marvel movie which kind of resembles this one, I would say its closest relative is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, because that movie is really grounded in its history and its culture and telling a story from the past. And I feel like this movie, obviously it's the Eternals, they've been living for 7,000 years. There's a lot of history surrounding them, and this movie really does deliver and show us the history of the Eternals. And with what I said about my review of Shang-Chi, you can check it out up here if you haven't watched it already. I think that movie isn't like a Marvel movie, just like I think Eternals isn't like a Marvel movie either. And I mean that in a really good way. And I feel like I should give a quick warning that my praises with this movie comes hand in hand with my frustrations for this movie as well. First, I want to talk about the characters in this movie, because there are a lot new members to the Marvel gang in this movie. And like an Avengers movie where they introduce a lot of characters at once, we are introduced to a lot of characters in this movie. But unlike an Avengers movie where most of the characters have their own solo films and the other characters feature in those solo films, so we already know a lot about their characters. We don't know anything about the Eternals if you haven't read the comics, so that's someone like me. So I went in this movie with zero expectations of who anyone was, what anything was, which probably wasn't the best thing because they had to introduce 10 new characters to me. But honestly, I don't think one Eternal was overshadowed in this movie. Granted, they didn't have enough time to develop each character, and they didn't really develop any characters in this in my opinion, but I liked each individual Eternal, and honestly I think each one had their time to shine. They had their time in the spotlight, and it kind of like all seamlessly worked for me, like working by themselves or working in this team. And honestly, I think every character was as good as it was gonna get in this movie.
You know what's never saved the planet? Your sarcasm.
But because the character development wasn't great and we didn't learn enough about the characters, when something good or bad happened to them, I didn't really have that emotional attachment to it. Well, up until the ending, where for some reason I just wanted to cry, but I really don't know why. Now I want to talk about places and sets and visual effects. Everything from like set design to costume design was absolutely beautiful. This movie was visually beautiful. I mean, they took us through the years. The Eternals have been living for 7,000 of years, so we got to see like loads of different like time periods, loads of different places on the earth, because they practically like took us around the world and through time, and I just thought it looked really nice. And from the trailers, I really thought that the special effects would get old, because it's 10 different characters, 10 different superhumans with superpowers that all require special effects. I really thought I would get older seeing it because it isn't real, and they really had to hold my suspension of disbelief, but they did, because it just looked awesome. I'm trying to think of a better adjective, but honestly it just looked really cool. And because of how each different Eternal has like their own powers, you was kind of seeing it in a different way in every scene. And like I said about the set design, that looked nice and looked beautiful, these special effects also looked really cool and really beautiful. And I just really want to talk about like their superhero suits, their costumes, because the design of the suits really matched the design of their powers. It really looked like celestial and cosmic, and I just thought it was really nice how they integrated like the powers design with the suit design. And I just thought it's 10 different people in one movie. You really put a lot of thought into this to make it unique to each individual character, and they did. They really pulled it off, and I just really liked it. And I just really think that is something I should compliment them on, because I really appreciated the unique details in each individual character within their suit and within their powers. Now I want to talk a bit more about the storytelling and the world building in this movie. This movie was pretty much dedicated to its world building and to its storytelling. Yes, there is a lot of action in this movie, but I also felt like there was a lot of just them standing around or sitting around talking, and that isn't a bad thing. I really felt like they had a good balance between the fighting and between the talking. And in this movie I felt like there was a lot of abrupt fighting scenes in this, because a deviant would just pop out of nowhere and kick off another fight, and honestly I felt like maybe the fight scenes would have went on a little bit too long if it weren't for every Eternal having their moment, having their fight sequence to show off their superpower, for it to look really cool and different than what we've seen before. And I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I really like the third act in this movie. Honestly, I think this is one of the best third acts in a Marvel movie, and because every Marvel movie has to end with a big explosive fight, which sometimes seems like it's going on for too long because it is just the one character fighting the villain. In this, it didn't feel like it was going on forever because there was loads of different characters having their own moment, doing their own thing in the big fight. Everyone had their role and it was kind of like 4 different things were happening at once, and I don't really want to give out any spoilers right now. Overall, I just really enjoyed this movie because it felt new and it felt different, just like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings felt new and felt different, because both these movies have history and they have culture to them. And yes, introducing 10 new characters can be a bit like mind-bending and mind-boggling, but I felt like it worked really well in this movie because I personally don't see the Eternals as individual characters. I kind of see them as a team, and so we learn about the Eternals as a collective, as a whole, and so I just think it generally really worked in this movie, and the storytelling really backs it up, as well as the visual and special effects. I just felt it all worked perfectly. Honestly, I just think this movie really works for me, and Chloe Zhao is an amazing director, and I loved all the actors in this movie. And do I think that Eternals was an ambitious risk? Yes. Do I think they pulled it off? In my opinion, yes, but maybe not for other people, but I really enjoyed this movie. Before I get into the spoiler section of the movie in this video, if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Comment down below what you thought about this movie, and I'm thinking about making a video where I rank all the Eternal characters. Comment down below if that is something you want to see as well. But now on for the spoiler section of this video, where I'm going to talk about the ending and the 2 post-credit scenes, so click off if you don't want spoilers. You have been warned. I don't have too much to say about this ending, but I did really like it, and there are just a few things that I want to say about it. And so I found it really nice and really cool how they made Icarus fly off into the sun because of the story of Icarus, where he flew too close to the sun and so his wax wings melted and he fell to the earth. And yeah, it's actually really funny because it took me a while to figure out what happened. I was like, wait, did he just kill himself? And then I remembered the story of Icarus, and I was like, oh my god, that's really cool. I really liked how they implemented that idea in this movie. And yes, Cersei is a badass, and I'm so happy for Athena that she was able to overcome like her troubles and get some kind of relief when killing the Deviant. And because we know that Eternals will return, I do have kind of like an idea, or shall we say a theory, about what will happen with Sprite. And so we saw that Cersei was able to turn Sprite into a human, and I just kind of had a thought where Eternals 2 would maybe pick up from a point where for some reason Sprite has aged up to the age where everyone else is, and so Cersei or someone will be able to turn her back into an Eternal, and like she'll just team up with them again. I don't really see Sprite just kind of like disappearing into nowhere, and I kind of have a feeling that maybe Icarus isn't dead. Obviously all my knowledge just comes from my brain or like on the internet. I haven't read any of the comics, and so I don't know anything about the Eternals, and that's just some of my thoughts where the ending's going. Okay, the first post-credit scene, really annoyingly, it got spoiled for me. Like I'm pretty sure it got spoiled for most people because it got spoiled from the premiere, and so honestly that's annoying. I hope the guy who spoiled that is gone. Wow, that felt really aggressive. No, don't mean that. But yes, Harry Styles is in the MCU now. I have my doubts with him, not that he's a bad actor, but that how big of a role is he going to play in Eternals 2 or wherever he's showing up again. And that's because he's a busy guy. He's got all these other movies he wants to do, he's got his music, and so I was just like, does he have enough time to juggle the MCU? Because the MCU, if you're like a main character, that's a big commitment. But yeah, I am really excited to see what he's going to do. And when the first like kind of like dwarf or like elf thing popped up, I honestly thought it was going to link it to the Guardians and like Star-Lord for some reason, because he seemed kind of like spacey and the type of people that Star-Lord and his gang will run into. But no, then Harry Styles, brothers Thanos, was it Eros? He showed up, and so I'm excited to see what he's going to do. And then there was like a little flirt between him and Angelina Jolie. Is Eros and Athena going to get together? And the second post-credit scene, yes, I was wondering what was happening with Kit Harington's character, because he's a big actor and he wasn't even in this movie that much, or as much as I thought he was going to be. And so the second post-credit scene kind of set him up to be like, I don't know, a villain or something, because there's a sword and I'm not too sure what that sword is, but if you touch it, death is my reward. And so is he becoming like a villain, or like, I don't even know what's going on with him. It seemed dark, it seemed evil. I'm excited to see him again. I quite liked his character. He was just a fun character. And I just thought of something else I wanted to say about Cersei's character. And so back in the day, she's with Icarus, but in present day, she is with Dane. And then she kind of has another thing with Icarus, but then ends the movie back with Dane. They kind of just like glossed over that. Like, is she a player? She's having 2 guys and it's bloody Richard Madden and Kit Harington. Like, okay, Gemma Chan. You go, girl. But yeah, that was just like an interesting fun thing that I thought about this movie. But yes, I really enjoyed this movie. I really liked this. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. That is it for my review of Eternals. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. Thanks for watching this video. Bye!